Do you eat tomatoes every day? If so, do you know how to keep them fresh for up to 2 months? Tomatoes are often considered a kind of seasoning that appears in nearly every meal. Whether you're having a sandwich, a salad, or cooking a hot dish, tomatoes are simply essential. But the problem is, we often find ourselves running to the store every day because we're afraid that buying too many at once will lead to spoilage, and no one wants to waste food or money. So today, Tracy is going to show you how to store tomatoes so they stay fresh and flavorful for up to 2 whole months. Once you watch this video, you'll probably want to stock up on tomatoes without the fear of them going bad before you can use them all. First, we'll start with the proper way to wash tomatoes to remove dirt and bacteria without damaging their delicate skin. All you need is a clean basin of water. Add about 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the water. If you don't have vinegar on hand, a few drops of lemon juice or a bit of iodine solution can be used as alternatives. White vinegar has a mild acidity, primarily acetic acid, which helps kill certain bacteria and microbes that may be clinging to the surface of vegetables and fruits. Soaking the tomatoes in vinegar water helps reduce the risk of contamination from soil or human handling. Unlike soaps or industrial cleaners, white vinegar is safe for food, leaves no harmful residues, and is easy to find at any grocery store. After soaking the tomatoes for about 5 minutes, gently rinse them again with clean water. Then, use a paper towel or clean cloth to thoroughly dry each tomato. This drying step is crucial. Moisture left on the tomatoes can lead to spoilage, especially at the base where water tends to pool. Once your tomatoes are completely dry, you're ready to move on to the storage step. Method 1. Storing in Ziploc bags. Once the tomatoes have been thoroughly washed and completely dried, the next important step is to sort them into separate Ziploc bags based on their ripeness. This may seem like a small detail, but it's absolutely crucial if you want to keep your tomatoes fresh for a long time without them spoiling prematurely. Divide them into 2 groups: firm, underripe tomatoes, and those that are already soft and fully ripe. Prepare a few clean, dry Ziploc bags. The firmer, not yet ripe tomatoes should go into 1 bag. They ripen more slowly and can be stored longer. On the other hand, the softer, fully ripe red ones should be placed in a separate bag since they bruise easily and tend to release ethylene gas, which can accelerate ripening in nearby fruits. Before placing the tomatoes into the bags, line the inside of each one with a sheet of dry paper towel. This will help absorb some of the natural moisture released by the tomatoes. Moisture is a major contributor to mold and rot, especially when sealed inside a bag. After arranging the tomatoes inside, remove as much air as possible from the bag to minimize oxidation. Removing the air can be done simply. Use a drinking straw inserted into the bag's opening and gently suction out the air, or place the open end near the intake of a hairdryer set to cool mode to help pull out the air. This limits the amount of oxygen that comes into contact with the tomatoes, which slows down spoilage and helps extend their shelf life. Next, seal the bags tightly to prevent any air from entering. Once you have 2 separate bags, one for firmer tomatoes and one for softer ones, you're ready to store them in the refrigerator's produce drawer. Before placing them in, line the bottom of the drawer with a clean, dry towel to absorb excess moisture and maintain hygiene. Place the bag with the firm tomatoes on the bottom since they're less likely to bruise, then place the softer tomatoes on top. This arrangement not only prevents the delicate ones from getting squashed or scratched, but also makes it easier to grab the riper ones first, helping avoid waste by using what will spoil soonest. If after a month the tomatoes are still fresh with no signs of spoilage or bruising, you can repeat this method to extend their freshness even further. Simply go through the same steps again and repackage them into new Ziploc bags for continued storage. This method is especially useful during times when you can't shop frequently or when you want to stock up on tomatoes for long-term use while maintaining their quality. It's simple, practical, and extremely effective. Method 2. Dicing for storage. This next method not only helps you save time, but also allows you to keep tomatoes fresh for just as long as the previous technique, by dicing them before storage. First, trim off both the top and bottom ends of each tomato. These areas often retain pesticide residues from the farming process. Then, cut the tomatoes into bite-sized dice, perfect for cooking later on. You might not know this, but tomatoes contain lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that may help lower the risk of heart disease and prostate cancer, while also supporting healthy, glowing skin. Ever since I learned about this, I've been adding tomatoes to our everyday meals. That's why this simple tip for pre-cutting and storing tomatoes has been such a time saver for my family. Now just divide the sliced tomatoes evenly into small zip-top bags. Next, use a drinking straw to remove excess air from the bags, then seal them and place them in the freezer. This step minimizes freezer burn and helps preserve the tomatoes' freshness for longer. With this method, your tomatoes can last from 3 to 6 months. Super convenient for making sauces, tomato egg stir-fries, or any dish that requires cooked tomatoes. When you're ready to use them, just remove a bag from the freezer and let it thaw for a few minutes before cooking. Thanks to this method, you've bought yourself extra time and saved the hassle of chopping tomatoes later. Once thawed, the tomatoes still retain their vibrant color and fresh look, almost like you just brought them home. Isn't that amazing? Method 3. Make tomato sauce for long-term storage. If you've brought home a batch of tomatoes and some are already too ripe to eat all at once, try making a delicious and convenient tomato sauce to store and use later. First, select fully ripened, evenly red tomatoes. Trim off the tops and bottoms. These parts are most likely to contain pesticide and chemical residues. Then, arrange the tomatoes on a baking tray and roast them in the oven at 392 degrees Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius, for about 20 minutes. Roasting not only softens the tomatoes and brings out their aroma, but also enhances their natural sweetness. Tomatoes are rich in vitamin C, A, K, potassium, and folate, essential nutrients that support immunity, circulation, and eye health. Once the tomatoes are soft, take them out of the oven and let them cool. Slice them in half and blend them until smooth using a blender. Pour the finished sauce into clean, dry glass jars. Stored in the freezer, this tomato sauce can last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. This is the perfect base for dishes like spaghetti, pizza, lasagna, or any recipe that calls for smooth tomato sauce. It's a great way to make use of ripe tomatoes and save cooking time later. Plus, it helps avoid waste when tomatoes are too ripe to use immediately. So now we've got 3 super effective ways to store tomatoes. Keep them whole in zip bags with paper towels, dice and freeze them, or roast them into a sauce for freezing. Which one do you like best? Method 1, 2, or 3? After today's video, there's no reason for spoiled, mushy, or moldy tomatoes in your kitchen anymore. Try one of these new techniques right away. And if you have an even better tomato storage tip at home, be sure to share it with Tracy and everyone else. And don't forget to hit like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives Tracy the motivation to keep sharing even more great kitchen tips. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.